Good afternoon, nerdies, and welcome back to another edition of Noob Nerds. Today, I'm going to be doing a couple more bases made from homemade, you know, homemade material, stuff that you have laying around your house. I was going to be kind of done with the basing project for a little bit, but I had like really good interaction with one of the people who watched one of my videos, and he was really cool and give me some other ideas and stuff like that to do some more basing. So I figured, why not? Let's go ahead and do that. Um, First of all, today drinking Old Overholt. It's a really good whiskey, inexpensive, and it's just really good. I like it a lot. It's actually the whiskey that Doc Holliday used to drink back when he was doing his thing and down there in Two Stone and other places. Another update, a couple more things that we've got for our 80s toy collection. We got the Cobra Pogo. We also have got a Mask Condor, fully functional with driver. And we got a couple of the Mask figures as well. So, okay, so let's get into this. So for this basing video, I did seven more household items that you could make bases out of. Um, I did a kitchen sponge. I did used coffee, tea, shredded paper, eggshells, which actually turns out to be really cool, lint from a dryer, and pencil shavings, just get from your pencil sharpener. Um, so they all turned out kind of decent, kind of neat, really cool. But yeah, let's get into this and we'll go into a little more detail so you can see what we made. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, so here you can see what we're going to start using. This is lint from a dryer. Got just leftover coffee that I had dried out. Actually had baked it too, just to make sure that didn't have any other bacteria in there. We have shredded paper. This is pencil shavings. Kitchen sponge, one of those pink kitchen sponges. Eggshell. And tea, which you don't barely get to see here. Okay, so we're going to start this one today with eggshell. This one turned out to actually be kind of cool. I can see myself doing this one again. Actually might wind up doing two other ones with eggshell, just to have one with lava and one as ice, because it turns out really cool in the end. So what I did was I just put down some PVA, actually it might have been Mod Podge on this one, and then just started sticking the egg shell to it. Okay, next up is kitchen sponge. It's just one of those pink scrubby sponges you use for doing dishes. or cleaning other stuff. Gonna do the same thing I did before with the eggshell. I'm just gonna take and put some glue, or like a Mod Podge or something like that, and just kind of press it on to make sure it adheres pretty well. Okay, next up is going to be the pencil shavings. This I'm going to go ahead and just mix in with a Liquitex matte medium, rather than trying to glue it down, although it might have been really cool if I would have glued it down too. Maybe it would have turned out, it definitely would have turned out a little different than it did. Not that it's turned out bad, but you know, just would have been different. And I apologize for the crappy video here. For some reason my camera was not focusing on it. Not really sure why. Of course, after mixing it up, I'm just going to go ahead and just put a big dollop on there and just kind of get it around to the edges. And after the pencil shavings, we're going to do coffee. So I'm going to do this roughly the same way as the pencil shavings, and I'm going to mix it up into some matte medium. A little less matte medium than coffee for this, though, because you know, you want the texture and the grains to come through. And we're going to do the same thing as the pencil shavings and just kind of grab a spoonful of it and just put it on there and then spread it out. Okay, I then take my paintbrush and kind of just put in some texture to it. Just push it down and, you know, just make little surface texture areas, some bumps and some little, you know, crevices and stuff like that. Next up, we got lint. This is just lint that you pull from your dryer trap. Didn't really do anything special to it. Just kind of took it out of the trap and put it in a bag. I'm also going to mix this in with some matte medium. Actually, well, I guess we'll do this one with some Mod Podge. And next up is just some herbal tea. thought this looked kind of cool because it had a lot of texture to it. And here we just have a look at the 7 different types: coffee and paper. Once again, apologize for the camera. Lint. I don't know why it was not picking this up. Pencil shavings. Kitchen sponge. Tea. And eggshell. And after they were dry, I took them out and gave them a coat of matte black and matte gray. And here's just a little better look at some of these. When I say better, it's actually kind of subjective because for some reason my camera is not focusing on these and I'm not really sure why. Might be time to replace it. Okay, so I am going to start with the eggshell. As I said, this was kind of the one that I was the most excited about. And basically, I'm just going to give it just a dry brush over and a very liberal dry brush at that. It's not like a dry brush. It still has some paint up in there, just to bring out some of the textures here. So the first base I started working on was the egg one, like I showed you before. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit of glue in just strategic areas, because this really looked like it looked like a rocky surface to me. So I'm just going to put in some glue, and I'm going to use a little bit of flocking just to give it the look of having some moss on these rocks. And after I'm happy with the moss, I'm going to go ahead and just put in some rocks and just strategic little areas. Okay, after I'm done with the eggshell one and I'm satisfied with that, I'm going to move on to the coffee. Now this one is, as I said, I spray painted it matte black, so I'm going to come in with some white and do a dry brush over the tops, just to bring out some of the texture and see what it really kind of reminds me of and what it looks like before I start working with it and bring it out, for the details or what I'm going to turn it into. I just, had a hard time visualizing because it was solid black, so I wanted to see what it looked like under there. And here's what it looks like before I move on to my next step. Probably didn't even have to do this step because I just wind up, putting a lot more stuff onto it, so it really wasn't necessary. But it helped me visualize where things were. Okay, so for this next step, I'm going to go ahead and just bring in some glue in specific areas because I'm going to attach some smaller rocks into it, and just in different areas. Don't want to make it too uniform. I'm then going to come in with a little more glue, and this time I'm going to start putting some flocking on there to make it a little green. We are now on to T, and here I'm going to paint it with some green, and this one's going to turn that into kind of a really wild druidish type mini base. It's actually, it turns out pretty cool. One of my favorites. I wasn't really expecting this one to be one of my favorites of the bunch, but it turned into it, that's for sure. So I'm going to start out by painting it green, and just to pull out some of the highlights and stuff like that. So after the green and a little bit of yellow for some of the highlights here, I'm going to wind up putting flock on this and to make it into more of a forest floor. Okay, now on to the kitchen sponge. So with this one, I'm just going to take some gray and a darker gray and a lighter gray and just go over and get some of the highlights, turn it into kind of a rocky, um, look to it. You'll see here where I get a lot of the highlights with this darker gray, and I come back in with lighter gray just to highlight some of the stuff. Okay, so looking at the kitchen sponge, after I highlighted everything, it really started reminding me of the volcanic rock you see in some place like Hawaii or some other one of those other Polynesian islands. And so I went kind of accordingly with it. So I mixed up some resin and I created a little bit of a barrier with just some blue tape, and I go in and just pour it into the one edge of the base. It did the sponge actually wound up absorbing a bunch of it, which I was kind of surprised as it had all the paint and the primer on there, but it did. So I actually had to go in and do 2 coats of it, which was, as I said, it was kind of a surprise for me. So after the second coat of resin cured, I wound up coming in and just carving away some of the edges, so it didn't look so hard. Just give it a little more of a beveled look to it. Make it look like a little cleaner, a little more natural. I mean, not like an ocean would be beveled or anything, but it looks a little better this way. Okay, then took some Mod Podge and mixed in with some of the snow flock that I had, just because I wanted to create some ripple effect into the water to make it look a little more dynamic. And I have to say, I wasn't too happy with how this turned out, so I actually wound up using a little bit of cotton balls to improve the look of the water to make it look like it's a little more like rough waves. My first time with cotton balls trying to do it like that, so I'm not really sure how it turned out, but I guess it turned out okay. Okay, now for the pencil shavings, I decided it kind of looked like a forest floor. So what I did was I wound up using this little leaf punch that I had. It actually makes little tiny leaves for HO scale uh, railroading, but it works perfectly for miniatures. So I punched a bunch of leaves out of actual leaves because I wanted that natural color. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and just dabble on some glue, some PVA glue, and I'm going to sprinkle on those leaves pretty liberally here. And of course, after that was done, I came in with some more PVA glue, and I'm going to put in some flocking just to make it look a little more natural. So as far as the lint goes, I really couldn't come up with anything kind of neat with this one. I just, it looked kind of, I don't know, swampy, kind of natural ground cover-ish, so I'm going to go ahead and paint this one as a greenish as a base tone. And after that dries, I'm going to come in with some more PVA, and I'm going to go ahead and just hit it with some flock just to make it look a little more natural. I'm also going to put on some rocks first too, just to, have them in there. And after adding the rocks, I wound up adding in some little bushy type things. Not really sure what kind of plants these are made out of, but you get them from for model railroading. Okay, now for the paper, I went ahead once again. I dry brushed the tips in a white, and just to see, kind of give me some impression of what it would look like or what it should resemble. To me, it looked like a very cold, wintry piece. So I'm going to go ahead and I brush in some PVA glue, and I'm going to use some snow flock on there just to, make it look a little more cold, a little more wintry. Okay, so now we're going for, I guess, the final reveal. And once again, as usual, I'll be using the Noob Nerds Wizard as just a reference point for what it would look like on some of the different bases. So let's go ahead and just start out with the eggshell. So this is what the eggshell looks like, fully done, with little miniature rocks and some moss, some flocus moss and stuff like that painted up. And you can clearly see that this would actually make a really cool base for just about anything. You could paint this up as lava, you can paint it up as ice, you can paint it up just as rock like I did, and I think it would look really good. Let's go ahead and do the for this is the shredded paper. So I went ahead and added a tree, or a stick really, not to represent a tree, and then I glued in a little red bird in there just to give it a little bit of color, just so it wasn't so harsh, but be a nice winter scene for our wizard to go through. And looks like he's gone through a lot of trouble here, didn't it? Maybe put a little bit of snow on the wizard itself. Okay, now this one is the kitchen sponge. To spice it up a little bit, just so you know, as I said, I put a little bit of cotton ball on there to represent kind of like the waves, and then I had some 3D printed shells that I threw in there. But it looks like he's standing on the edge of the ocean, looking out. Okay, now for the coffee grounds. Just like a natural outdoorsy thing that our wizard could be going across. Okay, let's go T next. So T, as I said, I went really druidy, really wild. Threw in like kind of a couple standing stones there with some moss on them, and kind of looked like someone that I don't know, that would be out in the wild. Okay, for the pencil shavings. As I said, it kind of looked a little bit like a forest floor to me, so I threw in some leaves and some, just some green in there, just to, make it look a little more natural. And then finally, lint. The lint was neat. I could see a lot of different uses with it, especially something really swampy. I could see doing some resin with this one to make it really wet looking, make it look like a bog, something like that. But just painting it looks okay. It doesn't look bad at all. Probably should have flocked it a little more. Or done some flocking, or maybe even some static grass or something like that, but it's kind of cool looking. Definitely nice and easy to do. Okay, everybody, so that was 7 more household items that you could use to make pretty cool bases. So which ones did you like the best? Let me know in the comments, because I really want to know. And maybe we could do a little more of these someday. As I said, I really want to do another one of those, couple more of those egg shell ones, just to see what it would look like with lava or ice or something like that. Pretty cool. Actually, it might be neat to actually mix that with some of those CDs I did in a previous video, the broken up CD material. But I'm thinking about doing some kind of a challenge to something that you guys pick, make a base based on something, whatever it is, that you guys can come up with. I'll make a base for it and see if we can get something kind of cool. Well, I hope you liked the video. Please comment, subscribe, and like. And if you're on a platform, watching this on a platform other than YouTube, make sure you hit the plus button for Rumble, things like that. Anyway, I hope everybody has a great weekend, and yeah, that's it. Talk to you later. Bye.